The 2020 NFL Draft is set to begin on Thursday night. So today is my final mock draft of the 2020 NFL mock draft season. And I am just going to jump right into this because the first few picks seem almost certain. Number one, I have the Cincinnati Bengals going with Joe Burrow, the quarterback out of LSU. Now, this is something that we have all known for months, at least I've known for months, that Joe Burrow will be the number one pick in Thursday night's NFL Draft. Now, number two overall, I'm about 98, 99% sure. Not 100%, but close to it. I have the Washington Redskins going with Chase Young, the defensive end out of Ohio State. And the reason why I'm not quite 100% sure yet is because there was a rumor given out by Ian Rappaport that the Redskins are listening to offers for the second overall pick. However, it was said that they're not even interested in trading away the second overall pick, but they are listening to offers. So the question is, what kind of teams are offering the Redskins the second overall pick? Could it be the Dolphins trying to ensure they get Tua Tagovailoa? That's at least what I think at this point. Could it actually be the Falcons trying to surprise a lot of people by trying to get Chase Young themselves? Or even Jeffrey Okudah? But Ron Rivera is a defensive guy at heart, and to establish his first season as the Redskins head coach is to draft the best defensive player in this draft class, and that is Chase Young. The third overall pick, I have the Detroit Lions going with Jeffrey Okudah, the cornerback out of Ohio State. Now, I'm only about 90% sure about this pick. The other 10% is probably Derrick Brown out of Auburn. Because the Lions, they need help all around their defense, but I think the secondary is a much bigger need, considering they traded Darius Slay in this offseason. And Okudah will provide a huge spark in the Lions secondary moving forward. Now, this is where I think the real NFL draft begins. Number 4 with the New York Giants. The New York Giants, they need offensive line help. However, there is a prospect like Isaiah Simmons that is on the board. Now, do the Giants go with Isaiah Simmons, possibly the best player available at this point? Or do they sacrifice a chance at Isaiah Simmons, maybe a diamond in the rough amongst top 10 prospects? Or do they just go with help on the offensive line? The answer to that question is I have them drafting Tristan Wirfs, the offensive tackle out of Iowa. The Giants need to think long term here, and they need to address their issues with the offensive line. Build protection for Daniel Jones and provide running lanes for your face of the franchise, and that is running back Saquon Barkley. Give him running lanes. So the Giants, this is a long-term pick for them. Number 5 are the Miami Dolphins going with Tua Tagovailoa, the quarterback out of Alabama. Now, it appears that the Dolphins are still all in on Tua Tagovailoa. In fact, I'll be surprised if the Dolphins do not go with Tagovailoa at 5th overall. Despite him not passing his physical, whatever it was, that the hip injury is still a question, or even an ankle injury is still a question. But he looked pretty good during his video that he did, where he looked like he was working out a little bit. And I think the Dolphins will still take him at 5 despite the injury risk, because I think Flores likes Tua Tagovailoa's leadership. I think he enjoys his upbringing, of his work ethic. Number 6, I have the Chargers going with Andrew Thomas, the offensive tackle out of Georgia. Now, in the last 3 mock drafts, Justin Herbert has been the pick. However, what we're hearing about Coach Anthony Lynn being interested in Tyrod Taylor moving forward. In fact, he's already announced that he will be the QB1 heading into the 2020 NFL season. I think with this information, I think they go with Andrew Thomas, the best offensive tackle that's on the board at this point, probably the best offensive tackle in this draft, to build protection for Tyrod Taylor, a very underrated quarterback. Because you have to remember, Tyrod Taylor led the Bills to their first playoff appearance in the 21st century. So Tyrod Taylor is capable of being a starting NFL quarterback. Number 7 are the Carolina Panthers going with Derrick Brown, the defensive lineman out of Auburn. And this pick, it's either 50-50. It's either going with Derrick Brown or they're going with Isaiah Simmons. I think the Panthers need to look at the big picture and focus on their defensive line. Isaiah Simmons seems like the better pick, but I think long term, Derek Brown will be the most beneficial pick for the Panthers in this situation. But 50-50, this is either Brown or Isaiah Simmons. I honestly guarantee it. I'll be surprised if they draft anybody else other than those two. If both of them are still on the board, of course. But if Simmons is taken, the pick's Derek Brown. If Derek Brown's taken, which I'm not really expecting, but it could happen, then it'll be Simmons. But Derek Brown, I think, is going to be the way they go here. Number 8, the Arizona Cardinals. I have them going with Jedrick Wills, the offensive tackle out of Alabama. The Cardinals address their need on the offensive line because they have already traded for DeAndre Hopkins in the offseason. So they address what they didn't address last year, and that is the offensive line. Number 9, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars going with Javon Kinlaw, the defensive lineman out of South Carolina. Javon Kinlaw is a prospect that easily is deserving to be a top 10 pick. In fact, I think he's going to help out this Jaguars defense because the Jaguars need to do what they need to completely reassemble that Jacksonville defense that they established a few seasons ago, which right now is becoming a one-season wonder. And Javon Kinlaw is a good start in this scenario. Number 10, I have the Cleveland Browns go with Mekhi Becton, the offensive tackle of Louisville. There was some news earlier this week about Becton failing a drug test. However, I don't think that affects Becton too much. I think this is the range where he's probably going to get picked anyway. So I have him going at 10 to the Browns to build protection on that offensive line. Well, to build protection for the quarterback. So before I move on, I want to kind of address this top 10. So what we're noticing about this top 10 is that there are several teams that have struggled with offensive line in the past. Address offensive line needs in this first round. We've seen the Giants address offensive line needs, the Cardinals and the Browns. And the biggest takeaway in this is how is Isaiah Simmons still on the board? That could be that we see a lot of these teams are going with their biggest need instead of the best player available, which sometimes happens. And there's always a prospect that we think could easily be a top 5 pick or a top 10 pick, start to slip outside of the top 10. And this year, I think the victim of that is going to be Isaiah Simmons. Number 11, I have the New York Jets going with Henry Ruggs III, the wide receiver out of Alabama. The Jets go with a wide receiver to give Sam Darnold another weapon on offense. This pick could have also been an offensive lineman, but unfortunately, the best 3 offensive linemen are already taking that top 10. Number 12, I have the Las Vegas Raiders. Their first selection as the Las Vegas Raiders will be CeeDee Lamb, the wide receiver out of Oklahoma. Now, this, I think, is going to be a 100% lock. I think if CeeDee Lamb is still on the board at 12, I think John Gruden is going to pull the trigger on this one and go with CeeDee Lamb. He is what I think one of the best receivers in this draft class. Some say the best, but honestly, I think he's probably the second best behind Ruggs or Justin Jefferson. But CeeDee Lamb is arguably going to be the best receiver in this draft class based off of what he has in front of him. The Raiders, they could be a team that's on the rise. Although we could easily see the Raiders go the quarterback at some point in the draft, despite having Derek Carr and Marcus Mariota on their roster. If not this year, we can see him go the quarterback in 2021 because Trevor Lawrence will declare for the NFL draft next year. So we'll see what happens with the Raiders. But CeeDee Lamb is the pick. And I think he's going to have the most success amongst the top 3 receivers that we're talking about, and that's Ruggs, Judy, and Lamb. But Jefferson, I'm surprised that Justin Jefferson's not being considered in the top 15 because Justin Jefferson was 3rd in the nation in receiving yards last year, only behind Jamar Chase, who's going to be most likely the number 1 receiver taken next year, and Omar Bayless. Number 13, I have the San Francisco 49ers going with C.J. Henderson, the cornerback out of Florida. The 49ers get the lockdown corner that they need because we saw in the Super Bowl how the corners just got burnt play after play after play. Now the 49ers originally didn't have this pick, but they traded it to they gave DeForest Buckner to the Colts, and now the 49ers have the 13th pick. Number 14, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going with Josh Jones, the offensive tackle out of Houston. Now, ideally, this could be Justin Herbert or Jordan Love to develop under Tom Brady. However, I think the Buccaneers, they want to win, and they want to win now. And the best way to do that is to build around your offensive line to protect a 42, about to be 43-year-old quarterback in Tom Brady. Because the Buccaneers, they can also draft a quarterback in later rounds because there's going to be so many of them available in the later rounds. They just go to an offensive lineman at this point to build around the offensive line. Number 15 are the Denver Broncos with Jerry Jeudy, the wide receiver of Alabama. Now, this could also be a corner, but I think a wide receiver is the biggest need. And plus, it's always good to go with one of the best players available, and that is Jerry Jeudy in this situation. Jerry Jeudy kind of got overshadowed by Henry Ruggs and even Devontae Smith. Because Alabama, last year, they easily had 4 wide receivers that could be first-round draft picks. And the Broncos, in my opinion, get a steal in Jerry Jeudy at 15. Number 16, I have the Atlanta Falcons going with Isaiah Simmons, the linebacker out of Clemson. The Atlanta Falcons are surprised that Isaiah Simmons is still on the board. So the Falcons, they take advantage of having the chance to get Isaiah Simmons, to take him off the board, and the Falcons get what will probably be, at this point, the biggest steal of the 2020 NFL Draft. Number 17 are the Dallas Cowboys going with Christian Fulton, the cornerback out of LSU. Plan A for the Cowboys was C.J. Henderson, but with C.J. Henderson being off the board, Christian Fulton is Plan B. And the Falcons passed on Christian Fulton, even though the corner could be the biggest need, but the Falcons realized there will be corners available in later rounds. So the Cowboys get their Plan B. Number 18, the Miami Dolphins will go with K'Lavon Chaisson, the edge rusher out of LSU. K'Lavon Chaisson was a huge focal point in the LSU defense last season. He may have been overshadowed by other players on the defense, but K'Lavon Chaisson has a winning pedigree the Dolphins need. And it's important that the Dolphins draft players that have a winning pedigree to get that winning attitude in Miami. Because now that the AFC East is up for grabs with Tom Brady no longer being on the Patriots, the Dolphins need to get back to relevance. Number 19, I have the Las Vegas Raiders going with A.J. Terrell, the cornerback out of Clemson. The Raiders address their second biggest need, and that is a corner to help out their secondary. They've already drafted CeeDee Lamb, a replacement for Antonio Brown, who never took a regular season snap or even a snap at all for the Las Vegas Raiders. Well, Oakland last year. But either way, the Raiders address their 2 biggest needs with their 2 first-round picks. Number 20, the Jacksonville Jaguars going with Grant Delpit, the safety out of LSU. The Jaguars right now are doing very successful in this 2020 NFL Draft. They have gotten Javon Kinlaw, and they've gotten now Grant Delpit. 2 prospects that will improve this Jaguars defense, hoping that they can get back to relevance. And getting back to that dominant Jacksonville defense. Number 21, I have the Philadelphia Eagles going with Justin Jefferson, the wide receiver out of LSU. Now, a lot of Eagles fans think that this is going to be the pick, that it's almost guaranteed. The biggest need for the Eagles is a wide receiver. Because we saw last season how short-handed the Eagles were at wide receiver at one point. In fact, it got to a point where Josh McCown almost had to become a wide receiver in a game. So Justin Jefferson, I think the Eagles get a massive steal here because Justin Jefferson has top 10 talent, and the Eagles are getting him at 21. Number 22, The Minnesota Vikings going with Jeff Gladney, the cornerback out of TCU. The Vikings get one of their biggest needs at a cornerback, which they released Xavier Rhodes in the offseason. And the Vikings will hope that there is a big-time wide receiver that will still be available at 25. They're banking on Denzel Mims being available a couple picks from now to get their second biggest need, a replacement for Stephon Diggs. Now, 23 and 24, I want to address together. The Patriots at 23, I have them going with Justin Herbert, the quarterback out of Oregon. At number 24, I have the New Orleans Saints going with Jordan Love, quarterback out of Utah State. Now, what we're seeing is the Patriots taking a quarterback, possibly going to be the day one starter, or at least compete with Jarrett Stidham for the QB1 position. And I highly doubt that Jarrett Stidham is going to be the starting quarterback in 2020 if the Patriots happen to take Justin Herbert. Because there were rumors a couple weeks ago surfacing that the Patriots were interested in Justin Herbert. They like what they see from him. And 24, Jordan Love to the Saints. A veteran quarterback in Drew Brees is set to retire about 2 years from now. So Jordan Love has already been proclaimed as a developmental quarterback, a quarterback that needs time to develop. We've seen Aaron Rodgers develop under Brett Favre. We've seen Patrick Mahomes develop under Alex Smith. So the developmental process will be on Jordan Love for the Saints. And I know that the Saints organization is pretty adamant about Taysom Hill possibly being a franchise quarterback by the time Drew Brees retires. Well, that's not going to happen. It's just a smokescreen. They're going to try to bait a team into trading a high draft pick for Taysom Hill. And I think the Saints go with Jordan Love at 24. Number 25, I have the Minnesota Vikings going with Denzel Mims, the wide receiver out of Baylor. The Vikings gamble paid off by passing on Mims at 22 and banking on him being available at 25. The gamble paid off for the Vikings. The Vikings are taking care of their two biggest needs, a cornerback and a wide receiver. Number 26 are the Miami Dolphins going with Cesar Ruiz, the offensive lineman out of Michigan. The Dolphins set up protection for Tua Tagovailoa, who they have drafted with the 5th overall pick. And the Dolphins, they have so much draft picks ahead of them. We could easily see him drafting a running back and a wide receiver at some point in the draft, possibly in the 2nd and 3rd, 4th round, to build weapons for Tua Tagovailoa. Wouldn't surprise when we saw the Dolphins draft a running back in the 2nd round. Number 27 are the Seattle Seahawks going with Yetur Gross-Matos, the edge rusher out of Penn State. Underrated prospect. Easily could be a top 17 pick. The Seahawks, I think they get a mild steal here with Gross-Matos. The Seahawks improve their defensive line. They get an edge rush that's needed to get the Seahawks back to where they want to be. Because ever since Super Bowl 49, the Seahawks, they just haven't been the same. And the Seahawks are hoping to get back to the Super Bowl where they feel like they belong. Number 28, the Baltimore Ravens going with Kenneth Murray, the linebacker of Oklahoma. This is a pick where the Ravens just take care of their biggest need, and that is a linebacker. Number 29, the Tennessee Titans. I have them going with A.J. Epinesa, the edge rusher out of Iowa. The Tennessee Titans, I think they're getting the second biggest steal in this NFL draft because A.J. Epinesa had a fantastic 2019 season. In fact, his 2019 season was unfortunately overshadowed by the season of Chase Young. And if it weren't for Chase Young, I think A.J. Epinesa would be at the very least a top 10 pick, maybe even a top 5 pick. I'm that high in A.J. Epinesa, and I think the Titans get the second biggest steal of the night with A.J. Epinesa. Number 30 are the Green Bay Packers with T. Higgins, the wide receiver out of Clemson. T. Higgins is a wide receiver that is amongst the highest group of wide receivers in this draft class. A very stacked wide receiver draft class. And the Packers, they take a wide receiver to complement Devontae Adams and give Aaron Rodgers another weapon in the Packers offense. Number 31, I have the San Francisco 49ers going with Brandon Ayuk, the wide receiver out of Arizona State. We're starting to see a lot of wide receivers come off the board because this is a stacked wide receiver class. And it wouldn't surprise if we saw a huge group of wide receivers go off the board right in a row. And Brandon Ayuk is just the next wide receiver. The 49ers get their second biggest need, and that is a wide receiver. Number 32, I have the Super Bowl winning Kansas City Chiefs with Noah Egbinogany, the cornerback out of Auburn. A very interesting prospect here in Noah Egbinogany. He was a wide receiver turned into a cornerback. And he's also really good at special teams. So the Chiefs, they just get better at this point. So that concludes my NFL Mock Draft 4.0. Like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy the first round of the NFL Draft. Enjoy the NFL Draft as a whole. This is going to be a much different NFL Draft, an unprecedented NFL Draft for the unprecedented situation that we are in. It's going to be very interesting to see how everything plays out. It wouldn't surprise we didn't see as much trading as there has been in drafts past. But ideally, a team that could possibly trade up or trade down is the Falcons. And honestly, I think the only way the Falcons are staying put at 16 is if this whole NFL draft, it really it pans out the way that it's sticking out, at least in my mock draft. And Isaiah Simmons is starting to fall off the board. Because I think the Falcons will take Simmons at 16 if he's still on the board at that point. I could easily see the Eagles trading up because it's been rumored they want to trade up for CeeDee Lamb. I think the Packers could also be a team that surprisingly trades up into that top 10 for a CeeDee Lamb or a Jerry Jeudy or a Henry Ruggs. I could also see maybe the 49ers trade up a little bit to maybe get Denzel Mims. Just ideally a couple teams. I don't think the Patriots will trade up. I know that was been rumored that the Patriots could trade up from 23 to 3, but I don't think they want to do that. I could also maybe see the Giants trading down, but I don't think it would be smart to do that because I feel like if you don't have like a pick like if you are picking inside the top 5, I think there's really no need for you to trade out of the top 5 because you have so many prospects to choose from, and the lower you trade down, the less amount of these talented prospects that you have to choose from. At least these top tier prospects. So that's all I have. Enjoy the NFL draft. See you next time.